3 long days, some I don't know. It takes a little more than what you show, and that's yesterday. Yeah, yesterday.
Welcome to Bobby Finn Knows Everyone, special episode at Hockey Day, Minnesota in White Bear Lake. Along with me, Tom Lord. How are you, Tom?
Doing great. Hockey Day, Minnesota.
Hockey Day, Minnesota. Also with us, special guest, Tom Chorske. How are you, Tom?
Really good, really good. I was here last night, and I'm glad to be here again today.
You're going to be here all weekend.
Maybe. I got some coaching. I'm coaching a team, my youngest son's team, but I might try to make it over again.
Fun.
Yeah, we played in the alumni game, or not the celebrity game. That's what it was. How many goals did you score?
0.
Well, got some young bucks out there these days. Got a couple girls that are kind of grinding, wanting to play with the boys.
Olympians.
Yeah.
They were moving, moving better than I was.
Yeah. I mean, you got Winnie and Hannah Brandt and a couple. I think there was 4 total, right?
Yeah, more. Yeah. There's a name is escaping me right now. Tip of my tongue.
I apologize. This is a surprise to you. But I was handed this. I don't know if this is yours or your wife's.
My wife's, I guess.
She left it in the locker room last night, and Winnie gave it to me to make sure you got that. So there was nothing else. Why I'd have your wife's lipstick.
Lip gloss. You gotta.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's a really important thing. Like that, it got transferred. The next day back to me.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
But if it's some sort of expensive cosmetic, I'm glad to have it back in my pocket.
Maybe you need that chapped lips out there skating and the wind's blowing and you need a little lip gloss.
Winnie and her were talking. I'm like, is it really that big of a deal? Lip gloss? Like, can't you just slap some Carmex on it or some Vaseline? They're like, oh no.
Some Utter Balm.
Yeah, something, anything. No, it's got to be glossy and the right color, to match your outfit or something. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we don't have those problems.
Exactly.
Right.
So Hockey in Minnesota here in White Bear Lake. I can't believe coming into this facility how big it is, how expansive it is.
Yeah, well, having we talked a little bit before, having been through a bunch of these when I was broadcasting them on Fox Sports North, and then I was on the planning committee for the Minneapolis one. Really, one of the things that's happening is it keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? And the interested cities come and visit the previous one. And it's all of a sudden it's like you have to keep raising the bar a little bit.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, and at some point maybe we've reached enough. I think it's big enough and it's commercialized enough. But the community, I guess, the value and everything that people coming out for it, it's awesome because if the weather is bad, you got big tents to go inside. The ice in the rinks have gotten so great. They've figured out what type of amenities you need at the footprint because there's a lot of electricity that you need. You need a lot of space. You need water. You just need lots of things that you don't even think about until you talk to the group before, and they'll say, good thing we had this, or if we had to do it over again, if we were you guys, you better have this or that.
Yeah, maybe Woodstock 99 could have learned something from the Hockey Day, Minnesota, and have proper bathrooms and water and all that, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's key, but this, as you mentioned, you walk up into it and it's really cool, right? You walk onto this site and it's hockey, it's winter, it's Minnesota, and it gets you a little fired up.
It's cool too, seeing the teams that are arriving and they got their bags and they're looking around, they're posing for pictures by ice sculptures, and they're bright, the wide eyes of like, oh my God, I can't believe we're playing in this, and how fun for those kids.
When I walked in earlier, the wind is howling pretty good, but Hill Murray was practicing and you could tell they were whooping it up on the ice and having a blast. And then I saw the Hermantown guys were coming in. They must be on the ice next.
Yeah. They're
playing Matamidi, which sounds like a great matchup, right, for Class A.
Yeah.
For kids, this is huge. They're getting to play. It's like an outdoor game, in the NHL, and it's on TV and bright lights and, all the amenities. And
did you ever get to play in an outdoor game?
No,
that was
I did not.
When all the stadium series and all that.
Yeah, too old for that.
But you did play in the celebrity game, so
got in the celebrity game last night. That's so, and I think I've played in another one last year, Minneapolis one. I think I coached that one. I had a new hip, So I took a little hiatus from hockey. So last night was the first one in quite a while I've been on the ice, but it was really cool. Neil Broughton was our coach, who I played with in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And he's an idol of mine, so I still kind of fanboy when I'm around him.
He's the iconic Minnesota hockey player, right?
He really is.
Yeah,
at least from my era. You know, if you're a little older, it'd probably be Mayasic.
He's the greatest hockey player.
Lunani is in there too, right?
Is that our Mount Rushmore of Minnesota hockey legends?
I think start with Mayasic.
Just named a few of them: Mariucci, Mayasic, Nanny, Broughton. I don't know, and then more recently, there's a lot of names now.
How about Dino Cicerelli? One of my favorites.
He's not a Minnesotan though.
That's true. He's not a Minnesotan.
We're not gonna.
You're right.
And he slashed me really hard in Stanley Cup, and I'm glad we beat him. But he played for Detroit when we beat him for the Stanley Cup. But he slashed me so hard. I still remember.
He was such a hated player, wasn't he?
Dino,
great player.
Well, he's a great player,
awesome player, and you had to respect him.
Garbage goals, though, right?
Scrappy, gritty.
He's a pigeon. You call him a pigeon?
He was a pigeon.
He was lippy.
I would have murdered him. I would have been like Secord for sure.
But no, he was great, and he was great for the North Stars, and everyone loved him. So,
but that's what made those rivalries, though, right? The hatred that Chicago had for him.
Yes.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was,
you didn't need to have planned fights back then. You didn't need to have all right.
He just would get under their skin, right? Yeah. He started them and someone else would finish them. That's what goes on with those guys. Kind of, if you're really undersized, but not afraid. And they right in front of the net and stir it up, and then
their march hands.
Yeah, and in comes Willie Platt or whoever they had to come in, and
that was so.
Maybe that's my problem. I was not big and I was afraid, so that's why I never quite made it. I didn't have that combination of.
All you need is a big guy. You go, hey, I'm going to start it.
Yeah,
and then you come in. You don't have to be the tough guy. But.
Right. So let's go back to some of these games. Have you seen the jerseys too that these kids are wearing? That's the other thing. They get these outdoor special jerseys, which are really cool.
A third jersey that they'll get to keep for their life.
Yeah.
Did you see what Hill's coming out with?
No. Cooperalls.
The Cooperalls.
Come on.
Oh, really?
I was joking.
No, they're coming out with it. I saw it.
Are they going to use them all game?
They're using them.
All game?
Yeah. Well, that's what it looked like.
Just warm-ups?
Cool.
The whole game?
I'm sure they're different than when we had them, right?
I don't know. I'm sure they're
obviously movable. You gotta be able to move in them and everything else.
Some better material and stuff like that.
Did you ever wear Cooperalls?
Did, yeah. My first year at Southwest, so it would have been my sophomore year. We wore them. God, pretty ugly.
Did you have the big mask too with the giant holes in the mask? So you could
the Protect mask. It was just like, just had a very few bars.
Yep.
Which was great. You could see through them, but a stick could go through them too.
You could get a stick through.
Oh yeah, you get a blade through there. It doesn't happen, rarely, but
only a few guys lost eyes.
But if it did, a couple eyes here and there.
Yeah. So. I think Hill Murray's going with the HM, the old throwbacks.
Okay.
I think it was Matamita's got the stripe with the tan. They're like really cool jerseys.
That'd be great.
Yeah. You got a favorite high school hockey jersey of all time?
I'm partial to. So I went to Minneapolis West as a freshman, which was in the center of Uptown, and we were the West High Cowboys. It was a cowboy boot with a hockey stick across it. Our colors were Kelly green, black, and white. Very cool.
Yeah.
And they had a W brand on the shoulder. I'm a little bit sentimental about it because I grew up in that community. So I love that jersey. And then sort of ironically, then I went to the Indians. So I went from Cowboys to the Indians to Southwest. And those were purple and white, very basic, but Southwest had such a rich tradition. They were very well known because they usually went to the state tournament out of that section. And they were the Blackhawks. We were the Southwest Indians. Yeah. Now they have to be the Lakers because you can't be the Indians anymore. But those jerseys were pretty cool too. After that, there's been a lot of iconic jerseys over the years that, up north, Roseau kind of sticks out.
Yeah.
I live in Edina now and my kids played for Edina. I always say I'm from Minneapolis. My kids are from Edina. I try to keep a little bit of separation there.
That Hornet jersey is pretty legit.
It's iconic.
Right?
It's iconic.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it a lot and you hate them, right? So it's etched in people's brain.
Yeah.
That whenever you're really emotional about something, you remember it.
Yeah.
But And they've won a lot of
Well,
championships.
they've been great forever.
They're in the championship game a lot.
Forever, right? I mean, I can remember when my kids were younger and you walk into that stadium or that arena and you look at the pictures on the wall.
Yeah.
And there's like 75 Pee Wee teams or, there's so many damn kids. I'm like, where do these kids come from? I mean, it's, and there's other communities like it now that once it builds up so much popularity and everyone gets into it, and they start at a really young age, right? I mean, to be really good at the high school level, you need tons of numbers. Herb Brooks used to talk about the pyramid, and you just got to fill that base. And in Edina, it's such a thing that everyone says, get your kid in there. And not everyone sticks with it, and which is fine, but they all try it out. And so there's like 400, mites or 450 mites. Yeah. And they're getting good coaching and they're getting good ice time, and it just builds up. And once you're on these, you don't even have to be on the top team. You're on the single, there's AA, single A, and there's like, 3 B1 teams and 3 B2 teams and a C team. So there's all these.
I feel like Edina does it differently, where they pack more kids into the B teams and they all get a little bit better because they're all playing with kids that, are different skill levels.
Keeps them playing.
Yeah.
And you want your kid playing at the right level. A lot of people don't.
You don't want to kick
subscribe to that, but because everyone wants to be on the A team or they,
But who wants to be on the A team? The kid or the parent?
The parent.
Well, that's it.
So and the kid does too, but the kid wouldn't want to.
They'll forget about it the day after the cuts are made.
100%.
Yeah.
And if they somehow got on that team, or if they got on for a political reason because their parents are friends with the coach, ultimately they know, like, I'm the worst kid on the team and no one wants to play with me, or I don't succeed. I don't score goals. I don't make plays because it's like, but no, these parents would never put their kid in like calculus if they're not good at math, right? They'd be like, no, he's got to stay in geometry, and if the teacher was like, no, we're going to put him ahead in the advanced class. No, he's not ready for that. But when it comes to sports, not just hockey probably, but soccer, they all want to play on the top team, but even if they're not.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Even to their development, I truly believe this. And there's some programs that you'll have the 15th skater that can't keep up. If they were on a level lower, their confidence, they're going to touch the puck. They're going to be such a more happy player and athlete.
Yeah.
It's not about making a team. It's about where you should be.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. I think you should be, you got to be challenged. I mean, if it's too much and you're just standing around, I think you're going to lose the love for it and you're going to be done.
Especially at certain ages. When you're a little younger, it's way better to be on the lower team. Mm-hmm. If you are showing some promise and you when you're 16, 17, then maybe get thrown into the more challenging environment. But, I don't know if you guys this is what we wanted to talk about, but, youth hockey development, but experience with our older son who's now in college. He didn't play on a top team in Edina one time, his second year squirts. So he was B team and then he was on the top squirt team. And then after that, he was always on the lower Pee-wees, Bantams, JV, finally made varsity. His middle of his junior year, they brought him up. But so he was always pretty much the best kid on the team he was on, but he was on the second or third level team.
Right.
That's great. Yeah.
Worked out.
And where is he playing?
He plays at Colorado College.
That's fantastic.
That's really cool.
And your daughter, obviously.
Yeah, she was always on the top teams. She was, which, that was worked out for her too and fueled her passion for the game. And she had, Edina just went through a phase and they're still pretty good, but 2 or 3 classes before her and probably the class behind her and her class, just like Andover is there now and Minnetonka's there now on the girls' side.
So how do you feel about that? That's one thing that these girls, like I told you, we moved to Stillwater, right? But my kids went there when they were younger, but we moved to Stillwater. Minnetonka has almost their entire team that didn't play there.
Didn't grow up there.
They didn't grow up there. So all these families that have kids growing up in areas where it's a great program, and then the next thing you know, their kid is kind of getting pushed out.
Right.
And I know some Edina families I know, their kids, next thing you know, they're going to Benilde or they're going somewhere else. There
hasn't been a ton of move-ins to Edina. There's been some, at least, again, I'm a few years removed from it now, from being right in there. But some people try to move in, and if they don't do their homework, they move in and find out they're still not good enough, right? There'd be some people that came in from Chicago or whatever, and you're like, might have picked the wrong.
Be careful
town.
what you wish for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there's some other ones that do decide to go to Benilde, because we talked about you can play multiple sports, or you will have a little bit more success because you'll be able to play in a higher line, or Blake or Breck, or so some of these families do move there, and I have no problem with that. Some of the you mentioned Minnetonka, that's a pretty strong recruiting effort. It would seem, or a bunch of families deciding to make that move. Yeah. And then they're pushing kids out, and I don't agree with that. I think there's going to be some kids that get really hurt by that. And then might even be some of the people that made the move that it didn't work out. Maybe like socially, or for the family, behind the scenes, the family's not really loving it or going there. Like, they'll probably never tell you, we should have never done that. We should have stayed where we were. But.
Right.
Bobby moved to Stillwater just based on the parents he can drink with. He's looking to like, who are the best party parents in the metro?
You have to consider everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things.
So there's some parents who got pushed out because Bobby can drink better than them, and they felt like they weren't part of the crew anymore.
They thought they were the first line drinker.
They did.
Now they got bumped out.
He took their
It's
spot.
pretty. I mean, somehow I got either
Pre-game is
lucky
important.
or cursed by finding the neighborhood that constantly drinks. I mean, you can't get away from it.
The hockey
it's incredible.
Parent crowd is fun.
It is
It's
fun.
fun. It's part of the deal too. I mean, it's part of the fun. Not that excessive drinking is what we should be, promoting, but the socializing part of it, you make some great friendships. And
But with that, we want to advertise for a still eating. No, I'm kidding. No, but yes, you're right. It's part of it.
It's great.
It's a community that your kids are growing up together. The families have to try to coexist, and then you find a few people that you're like, all right, these are my people, right?
Right.
And you're just like, all right,
we're social beings.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
We get a couple promos.
Yeah. Well, if your hair is a weapon or you wish it was, look no further than Duke Cannon Men's Grooming Products. Duke Cannon makes it hard-working products for hard-working guys, with some of the proceeds going to the military. Look for Duke Cannon at Target or DukeCannon.com.
Let's also thank our sponsor, Jimmy's Salad Dressings and Dips. Jimmy's has a very good dressing out right now. The blue cheese dressing, which is fantastic. It's chunky blue cheese, which I love because I like to put it on buffalo chicken sandwiches. You can also mix it with some French dressing, like a lot of people do. Throw it on your salads. It's fantastic. Jimmy's is a local company. You can find it at Cub Foods. And like they said, Jimmy's, don't you be messing
With the dressing.
Nice. God, we're getting so good at that.
We are getting good at that.
Let's talk about one more while we're at it. Joe Mama Salsa, because Joe Mama's is great for hockey teams, football teams, basketball teams. Because if you sell Joe Mama Salsa, they give you half of the proceeds back to your team. So it's a lot easier than storing pizzas in your freezer. It's easy on shelf space. Joe Mama's salsa is a fantastic salsa. It starts a little bit tart and it ends with a little bit of a kick. And Joe Mama's can also be found at Cub Foods. So I know a lot of friends have reached out to me and said, hey, I tried that Joe Mama's and it's really good. And it is really good. So check it out at Cub Foods. That's Joe Mama's salsa.
Awesome.
Let's talk a little bit. So your daughter's playing at Harvard. And did you not lose an important game to Harvard in your career? Let's talk about
1989, my last year, my senior year at the Gophers, we played in St. Paul at the Civic Center, championship game against Harvard, and lost in overtime. So yes, that was kind of an interesting dynamic and I actually was getting recruited by Harvard when I was coming out of high school, because their assistant coach from Minnesota, Ron Tomasoni, and my grades were, I guess, probably good enough to pique their interest. This is 1985, so maybe it was easier to get into Harvard back then. We didn't get too far into it just because the thought. I mean, back then, you probably weren't gonna turn down the Gophers. right? I mean, it was Minnesota
kid.
team,
Yep.
Minnesota kid, kind of my dream my whole life. I was heavily impacted by the 80 Olympics because I was 8th grade, 13 years old or so. And there was a bunch of Gophers and Minnesota guys, obviously, on
That's
that
awesome.
team. So, and I had been already going to their games. And so, all these guys, Bill Baker and Mike Ramsey and McClanahan and Christoph and all these guys were like kind of my idols growing up. So if I could put the M on, I was probably putting on the M.
Oh yeah.
But Harvard was talking to me, and I remember they came to our house, but just back then it was just like the thought of I'm going to go away to Massachusetts to go to school was kind of far-fetched for me at that time, and probably for my parents too. Like, I don't, it gets expensive.
The world was a lot bigger back then too, right?
Yeah. And then, but then 4 years later, we lose the national championship to them. And I'm like, man, that's ironic. Right? And then however many years after that, our daughter's getting recruited and she's got a chance to go to Harvard. And by this time I lived in the East Coast for most of my, early adult life playing pro hockey over there, and I played with guys from Harvard. It just was a little more familiar, and you start to understand what Harvard means to, especially to a woman hockey player when there's really no end game. There's a little bit of pro hockey,
right,
but that's pretty short lived and low paying. And, he's just as a parent and any of my friends would be like, if she can go to Harvard,
you get a degree from Harvard,
she should probably go to Harvard.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good idea. I'm like, that seems like a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So that national championship game stung probably quite a bit.
Yeah,
I don't want to get too deep in the wounds here, but
you
you blew it, and
gone.
we're all pissed off about it.
Yeah, no,
Well, you're talking to former Spirit squad because he can't reveal what his real job was there.
You can't
Allegedly.
reveal. He's sworn to like.
He's sworn to. It's kind of like the
I get
what is
it.
the skull and
I know. I can't talk.
Let's
right?
talk about the important subjects here, huh?
So yeah, that was rough because obviously, Rob Stauber had been a Hobie Baker winner, and I had left for 1 year trying out for the Olympic team in '88, got cut, came back. Snuggerud had come back. Todd Richards was on the team. Peter Hankinson was a good player. The two guys I was playing with, Grant Bischoff and Jason Miller, we had a good line. Goob from White Bear Lake was Anderson was John Anderson was on the team. Actually had a really good Frozen Four. I think he lit it up, had a hat trick in the semis against Maine. And we were just rolling, right? Like, we're the number one team in the country.
Yeah.
We got all these great players. We kind of cruised right through the semis, but we played Friday night and then had to come back and play Saturday. Harvard got to play Thursday and had the rest day. They were quietly a really good team, and we were a little bit probably ahead of ourselves with thinking, well, we're in St. Paul, we're at home, we're rolling. And they gave us a game and they snuck out of there with an overtime win. Puck trickled in. It was a fluky goal, but yeah, that one got away from us.
Well, maybe this is the year Snuggerud wins a national championship.
Good point.
That team looks pretty good.
Look really good.
Yeah.
And can he ever shoot it?
Oh yeah.
He's a good player.
Oh yeah.
He's wheezy. I knew he was good. Obviously, he got drafted high and been hearing about him, but watching him play he's big enough. He's gritty enough. He's skilled. He can he can go to the front of the net or he can rip it. But Cooley, Nyes, Lacombe, Johnson, Faber. Yeah, I mean, they're just loaded.
I think it's
loaded.
the glasses that make Faber and that team so good. Those are goofy glasses.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
And then they've got I think some of that leadership too from Jackson, Nelson.
Yeah.
Some of these older guys that are starting to be leaders, and they're super skill guys, but they're heavy and they play a little gritty.
Moscow does a great job too, right?
He's doing a nice job. He's got so much talent, but he's rolling these lines, so he's got all these. They're all going right. Pitlick, even these guys all these players are rolling pretty well. There's no haves and have-nots, right? They all contribute, so they all feel good. And then I think even on that fourth line unit, you see him interchanging some of those players. They two will play Friday. And then two will come out on Saturday and the other two will go in. So
yeah,
I think he's got a good thing going.
Absolutely. So let's talk about after the Gophers. You have a very accomplished pro career. 8 teams. Is that how many you played for?
Yeah, I sometimes say 7 because I don't.
Okay.
I just sounds better than 8. But yeah, I think there's an 8th team in there that was just for a couple weeks or something, or a couple.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Where'd you like playing the most?
I have New Jersey. You know, I was there the longest. Played there the most. Had the biggest role. You know, and got the most ice time. You know, and Jacques Lemaire was our coach with Larry Robinson, 2 legends. From Montreal,
Offensive coach.
Yeah, I mean, he was an offensive player, but they came from that defensive system,
well, that's
right?
what I mean.
The trap,
That'd be great for
what you're getting at. But
did he give you guys some good nicknames? Did you have the Chorske and the Hooch and the Boogs and the?
I think I was Tommy.
Tommy.
He called me Tommy, which was fine. That most people called me Tommy back then. Maybe Chorske. But, but you guys and everyone got to see him and hear him. But he was great to have in the locker room.
That's awesome.
So Jersey was probably the best. My wife is from New Jersey. Met her there. We won a Stanley Cup there in 1995. After that, I went to Ottawa. I started in Montreal. That was pretty cool. Iconic place.
Old arena.
The old Forum.
Yeah.
Fans are crazy.
Fans were great. They put on suits and coat and tie suits, and women get dressed up and go out on a Saturday night. And you look in the stands and everyone's kind of dressed really nice. It was a cool thing to be there.
Opera
right?
Montreal.
Yeah, and a lot of pressure though too, right?
Yeah.
People say so. There's French there and there's English, and so at practice or after a game, there was probably 2 or 3 French newspaper, let's say 2 French newspapers, and then there was a couple English newspapers. So that's 4 people coming in. Same thing on radio. So now you're up to 8. Same thing on TV or more. Now you're up to 12. And then there's national. And then other cities would send some of their people too. And it's like just, 25, 20 people coming in, and they're all looking for a story. And they're just clawing and scratching. Wow. And if you lose, it's the end of the world. And if you win, you're the biggest heroes ever.
What did you do with the cup when you had your day?
I got it actually for 2 days, which was awesome because Neil Broughton had it in River Falls. And I think the cup got there kind of first thing in the morning. He was just going to have a barbecue. And if you know Neil, he's pretty laid back. And the guy, he won the Hobie, won a gold medal, and he wins the Stanley Cup. And it's all kind of ho-hum. He's just like, he's very small town when it comes to that stuff. He just liked to play hockey. He didn't do it for the accolades. But so he has this little barbecue, and I think it got over on a Sunday afternoon at 2 or 3 o'clock. And the cup guardian, if you call him that, called me and he's like, hey, I'm done. And he's like, I can come tonight or I can just show up tomorrow as planned. I'm like, get over here.
As soon as you can.
If I can get an extra day with that thing, because that thing is a party starter.
Yeah.
And it is the coolest thing, when you're around it and you get to see, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, all these names on it, and then there's teams from way back in the 40s and 30s.
Insane,
so it's cool. So he showed up, started going to bars and restaurants that night, and ended up at a friend's house, John Johansson, who played hockey at Wisconsin. And we just, we were kind of just sitting around with it with 4 or 5 guys, which was kind of cool. And then the next day I had stuff planned. I took it to Bunny's Bar in St. Louis Park because that's where my parents used to go watch me play because you had to have the big satellite dish, and we didn't have the big satellite dish, I guess. So, and then took it on a radio station, took it to Bloomington Ice Garden because my high school buddy's dad ran Bloomington Ice Garden for 35 years, Denny May.
Okay.
He was like, hey, could you bring it out here? And so just bounced around. And then I threw a big party at least at the time, it's not as big as the parties they have these days. These days, guys like helicopter in on the top of a mountain. They're making millions of dollars. I was not making millions of dollars. But I had a party at Calhoun Beach Club, which was fun. And like city gave me I was like, got the key to the city or something, or it was proclaimed Tom Chorske Day.
That's great.
And then we went downtown to the Loon Cafe, and they shut the doors on that place, and we stayed there till 2, and then back to someone's house. And after that, just craziness.
That's great.
Does the Cup Guardian go with to all the different places?
Yeah, it's a different guy now.
Okay.
This was the first year they had done it. Kind of an interesting story. This guy, they didn't have a playbook for it, right? But the year before, I think the Rangers had like damaged it, ruined it. You know, the stories of the Cup getting left at places. I mean, it's been left at strip clubs. It's been left on the corner in Montreal, you know, and then the cab takes off and the guys get to the next bar and they're like, hey, where's the cup? I thought you had it. No, I thought you had it. Oh, the guys behind us have it. No, they don't have it. And they're like,
oh my God.
They left it. You know, this is a long time ago. Yeah. I think when the Penguins won it in the early 90s, someone jumped off Mario Lemieux's house with it and into his pool. And it sunk to the bottom of the pool. Edmonton one year took the bottom off it, and like their friends and brothers wrote their names. Like,
holy shit!
On the inside, so they like, yeah, my name's on the cup. It's on the inside. But so the NHL and Gary Bettman finally figured out, okay, this trophy it's the icon of our league. We have to start treating it that way, and so they figured out we need a chaperone. So now we have a chaperone. Well, this guy, he had, if I remember correctly, he had early retirement. He was like in his 40s because he had some sort of a not life-threatening disease, but he had a quit working,
okay.
And he had a policy or something so he could quit working. Well, he starts going around from party to party to party, and he's like kind of partaking, right? So this guy's run ragged. And then I remember he told me I think I ran into him down the road. He's no longer with it, but he was like, yeah, your party was awesome. He's like, I made a couple girlfriends there.
That's fantastic.
He's like, in fact, I went back to Minnesota the next summer. He's like, I got divorced, but because I met
What's the craziest Cup story you've ever heard though? I mean, I've heard like Langenbrenner tubing up on his lake, up in Cloquet, and I've heard people just doing.
I mean, the cup at the bottom of the pool
that's
is
fantastic.
That's cool too.
Pretty good. And taking the bottom off it and scratching your name in it.
I think that's crossing the line. When you're desecrating the cup, it is the greatest trophy in all of sports. I mean,
100%.
It is by far the
Nobody
greatest
threw
trophy.
it from boat to boat
100%.
like
Tom Brady.
And Gronk did.
Apparently
maybe they did.
Well, you
Apparently
can't. That's a smaller one,
massive.
right? You can't.
Yeah.
Craziest thing, I can't tell you the craziest thing I've heard, but the pool one is I don't know. The things I've said are pretty crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So you talked about jerseys, your high school. Do you have a favorite pro jersey? Are you partial to the Devils jersey?
No, I wouldn't say I'm partial to the Devils jersey.
What was the jersey that you put on? Because there's some jerseys you look at, you're like, that is so iconic and so cool
Montreal.
to wear. Yeah.
Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
That one, and there's so many hanging in the rafters, and it's probably changed a little bit, but they were the Dallas Cowboys of Canada.
Oh yeah.
They were, and wherever you went, and people loved the Habs. And when I was playing there, we had Patrick Waugh on the team, and Chris Chelios was our captain. So a couple of pretty big name guys, but Patrick Waugh he's almost like a Tom Brady when he, was going around Canada as probably the best goalie, for a while there at the time. Yeah. And then I played for Marty Brodeur with Marty Brodeur after that. So I didn't score a lot in practice.
Your confidence went way down.
Yeah, you keep the puck, and both goes. And when I coach teams now, after my career, I tell goalies that I coach, because both guys did this. They would not. First of all, they weren't letting in many shots, but they would never let a puck stay in the net.
Oh.
Like if you scored,
it's out of the net.
They'd turn around and immediately get out. So when the drill was done, there were no pucks in the net. Like there was no way either one of these guys wanted anyone to know, 2 or 3 got in, so there's
That's awesome.
Uber competitive.
Yeah, that competitive spirit. Was
Yeah.
Patrick Roy a good guy, or was he like unhinged? He seems unhinged.
Intense.
He was pretty intense. I mean, he got more intense as a
When he's
coach.
coaching, yeah.
And then he had that blow up when he got, they let him stay in there and he got scored like 8 goals on him. And he's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I was gone by then, but he was a little quirky and I was a rookie and he probably didn't have much time for me.
Sure.
I didn't hang out with him.
Goalies in general are quirky.
Typically. Marty Brodeur was pretty normal.
Was it?
But then he was also younger than me and, I was older. And so maybe there's a little bit of respect that way. Whereas when I came to Montreal, Patrick was already a like national star and stuff like that. So, but another thing about both those guys, if we were losing by a goal or 2, second period, third period, they could say, I'll shut the door. You guys get 2, we'll win, but they won't score anymore. And they wouldn't.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Hall of Fame guys, right?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Probably 2 of the top 3 goalies ever. I mean,
They're up there in the top 5 for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it gets hard to,
right.
compare when
He
you get
keeps
a few
going
others,
and
and there's
see
still
old-
some good ones have come along since then,
Right.
right? So
Keep her going.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
one of my things, and this is why it's kind of goofy when I talk, is your kids are tall.
yeah,
How tall is your wife?
My wife's tall. She's 5'11", and
Okay.
maybe
I
a
didn't
little
think
bit.
Jersey Shore made 5'11" girls, huh?
And she's blonde. She looks like Scandinavian.
She doesn't look like Snooki or
no. Like when I was playing in Jersey, they're all very Italian.
Yeah.
They're not very tall. They all have a necklace that has their name. Says like Candace or or Juliana or whatever. But I just kind of stumbled into her we were at a All-Star weekend in New York City. The game was in 1984. It was at Madison Square Garden. A bunch of Minnesota buddies were out there, and they'd show up at the All-Star weekend, and we'd start going nuts. And they actually met her and her friend and stuff, and I just kind of was like, well, these guys are going back on Sunday night. I'll still be here, so why don't we hang out?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, my kids have grown. Our son is 6'6", and Hannah's 5'11".
So I always look for the breeding material, and my wife's taller. My son's 6'2".
Are you still looking for breeding material? What's
No.
going on?
Well,
6 hours.
Well, I did from probably 16 to 34.
The thing that's nice is that you don't have to get off the couch to get something off the top shelf, right? You're like, she's got it. I don't have to. There's nothing I can reach that she can't reach.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Right.
Her arm is actually longer than my arm. She used to do this with the fighters because in the NHL, there's guys that are the best fighters have the longest arms.
Okay, sure.
And there's guys that are tough that probably have shorter arms too.
Domi
but-
would probably be pissed at you right now.
Yeah, but if she did the thing with Ty Domi where you stick your arm out,
She'd have
her fist would be hitting his chin, and his arm would be like this far from her face, right? So that's a big advantage.
Huge advantage. Yeah.
You're saying your wife could take Ty Domi. That's what we're saying right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Well, she's a Jersey girl. She's probably a
girl.
badass.
She might be able to.
Got
I
a
wouldn't
little
want to
bit
get
of
in her
Jersey
way.
in her. Yeah, a little bit
A
of Jersey.
5'11"
Snooki.
Scandinavian Jersey girl with the reach. I want.
She can stretch them out.
Oh yeah.
And there were some fights last night in the Wild
Oh
game.
my
That
God.
was pretty 3 in
one
one.
shift. So what would Dean say to the guys? Or do the guys just take it upon themselves?
Guys mostly take it upon themselves. Every once in a while when I played, you'd have a tough guy on the bench, or they'd call a kid up from the minors who that's kind of what he did. The coach would wait until a certain point in the game, and the kid probably hadn't played yet. And then all of a sudden, the other team scores and the crowd's going nuts, if you're on the road maybe. And all of a sudden the coach would come down and go,
You're up.
you're up. And it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay, you haven't played a shift.
Yeah.
All you do is fight in the minors, and the coach taps you. You've got one shot.
Do you want to be here tomorrow?
Yeah, you want to be here tomorrow. And one time I'm sitting next to a guy, and this happens, and I look over, and he takes off his elbow pads and puts them under the bench. I'm like, what are you doing?
Doesn't
He's
have
like,
that restraint.
because I'm not going to need these, Yeah. Cause you wanted as much movement in your jersey. Cause if you can get your arm going, because that's where you grab on.
Yeah. Right.
So with no elbow pads, you could get free. But, to the Wild last night, they've got veterans, Foligno and
Reeves.
Reeves was the first one. He knows that it's not his only job because he's a good hockey player and he's an intelligent,
But he knows his role.
Intelligent guy too. So he knows, right? And they've been scuffling along, haven't been winning. They're on a little bit of a skid. They're at home. They're playing a team they really should have to beat. And they come out a little sleepy, a little sluggish. They're on their heels. They're getting hemmed in. And probably they figured out either in the moment, or maybe even before, Reeves might have been thinking coming into the game, like,
I need to do
this
something.
might feel like a night where if we're not, he knows ahead of time. Like he knows when he's lacing up his skates or when he's driving to the rink having his coffee, man, if we go down by one right away or if we come out slow, I'm stirring it up. Now, I don't know what happened with the next two guys, same thing. And, maybe they just were frothing up and they were also frustrated because I'm sure they were frustrated. They're playing the Flyers, a team they have to beat, right?
Uh-huh.
The Flyers are not a good team. And I was out here, so I wasn't watching the game, but you could see it on the big screen. And Karts was out there, and he was kind of watching it because he's got to be dialed in for today, probably to talk about it. But it just looked like those guys figured out we need to get her going. The other thing, and I told you guys this, is that you're getting to this window in the season where it's hard, right? Because every day is stressful, and you're working hard, and your emotions are at the highest, but you still have a lot of season to go, regular season.
Right.
It's easy to get up for the playoffs, but a lot of regular season. You get into the dog days. It's getting a little long. On some days, you just got to manufacture some energy, some emotion. You're getting a little. Everyone goes through it, right?
Yeah.
Dog days of the season, and if there's one way to flip a switch, drop the gloves.
Tell us when I know we're going to wrap it up here real soon. Music just kicked in. Looks like we're going to have a little dance party. But tell us one of your favorite tough guy stories that you were.
Well, a fight story about me when I was a rookie. We were playing the Bruins, Montreal Bruins thing, and I would go to the front of the net. It's one of my first games, and I'm getting kind of abused, right? I'm getting the cross check in the back. I'm getting the stinky glove in the face, and I'm just taking it because I'm thinking, hey, it's the NHL. These guys are big, tough guys, and you got to pay a price to go to the front of the net. Well, this goes on, for the whole period. And like in the second period, I come back to the bench, and one of the veterans comes down, sits down next to me, and he looks at me and he says, hey, he said, it's getting bad, and you're going to have to do something about it. He said, if you don't do something now, you'll take it your whole career. Ooh. And he looked at me and he said, it's time to pop your bubble, whatever. And so I went out and went to the front of the net, got a cross check, turned around, made eye contact with the guy. I'd never done it. I'd never fought because I'm coming out of college. And they try to teach you a little bit in training camp, but he looked at me, he's like, you wanna? I'm like, I guess, Drop the gloves. And I was 6'1", 200 pounds, so I grabbed on as hard as I could and didn't get hurt. It was fine. And afterward, it's the first fight I'd ever been in. Stefan Quintel, I remember, a pretty tough guy, pretty big guy. And he after he tapped me on the pads, he's like, good job, nice job. He probably knew like I was a college kid because on the other team who's tough and who's not. Mm-hmm. And the tough guys know.
Right.
And the tough guys will come to you like, as I got in my career, they'll be like, hey, you played with that guy when you were in, Ottawa. Is he a righty or a lefty or can he throw both?
Right.
Like they want to know what they're getting into because they know he's tough and they know they're going to fight him. Yeah. Because that's their job.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's a great story.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, like you said, the music, I think they're giving us the cue to wrap up here, but Tom, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot more stories. We can do it again.
We will do it again for sure. But hey, we're part of the Pull Tab Sports family. You can hear us on Spotify, Apple, You can watch us on YouTube and all the major platforms. Like and subscribe, be a part of it. Like I say, go through life, be a good person, do the right things, help people out. Most of all, don't be a dick.
Yeah,